Look, it says here, love is work, see? You have to work on it. You can't just give up. Mom, Dad, I wish you could be friends again.
Welcome to Mind Controllers, a podcast about shining the light on the psychological aspects behind some of our favorite video games. I'm your host, Brandon Croft, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Joe Moreno.
And today, we are talking to you about It Takes Two. But first, just want to give a little reminder to rate and review the podcast on whatever listening app you're using, because that really helps us find new audiences. And yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So, Joe, we're talking about It Takes Two. I'll do a better job describing what it is, but it is a primarily cooperative platformer kind of adventure game. Mm-hmm. This is my second time playing it, and this game cannot be played solo. You have to play with another person, and I think it does the best job out of any video game with a cooperative, because it was built with cooperative in mind, and they really design everything around that cooperative aspect. And I don't know, I'm having a great time with it. We didn't beat it, but we were close. We were very
I think
close.
we were more than halfway through.
Yeah. Damn, if we had the whole day today to stream, I think we could have done it.
I think so too, yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay. We got busy. We got a lot of stuff coming up and happening in our personal lives. And we just gotta play whenever we can. But Split Fiction's coming out, and I think is out by the time this episode drops. So that's exciting. Looking forward to that so much. I love Joseph Ferris's games. But what have you been thinking about the game so far?
I think It Takes Two was really fun. I like that, you do have to partner up with somebody. I'm thinking about the chapter 2 where you have the the sap, the honey, and then the matchstick gun.
Oh yeah,
because you gotta cover things in sap so you can make them explode. That's pretty cool. The what was it, the over the top or Diablo style looking gameplay section.
I know you were a little wizard, or no, I was a wizard.
You were the wizard, and I was the knight.
Yep, it was perfect. I also loved when we were flying. We were trying to leave the tree, and the game just gets so creative with all the different other gaming aspects that they like to throw in there. And you had the little fighting style game, which was just perfect for you. You're the fighting game master.
That was really fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, this game has so many charming things to it. The story's fun. I mean, it's
not gonna blow your mind.
No, I'll like I said, I'm maybe I should just drop the description.
You go for it.
I should have done. All right. Before I describe the game, just want to give our spoiler and fictional character warning. So obviously we're going to be talking about It Takes Two. This game came out in 2021. It won Game of the Year. So hopefully if you were interested in the story at all, you've played it by now, but we are going to be spoiling the hell out of this game. I'll just cut all the silence, actually. I was going to say spoiler alert to what happens at the end, but they don't get a divorce.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
But like all of our discussions, all of these characters are fictional. They have no resemblance to any real person or thing. We are not licensed therapists. Joe is an associate therapist, but we don't have the authority to make any sort of official formal diagnosis, so this is all just in fun. So I'll go ahead and drop the description real quick. As far as the narrative goes, It Takes Two is a cooperative adventure platforming game that requires you to team up with a friend or stranger in order to play the game. You play as either Cody or May, who are both a couple who has decided to go through with divorce, which leaves their daughter, named Rose, distraught. She runs to her room and cries over these two dolls she made of her parents, and her tears have some magical properties on them or something.
Is that ever explained?
Not really.
Okay.
And then your souls, Cody and May, are whisked from their human bodies into the dolls. So now you two must work together to get your bodies back, all while learning lessons about relationship and love from the Book of Love, aka Dr. Hakim. And now the game is played entirely in split screen. You traverse these various worlds, and these worlds are composed of usually these worlds are composed of and set in these very mundane parts of the house that have been transformed into, this kind of magical level. We talked about the tree and how you have to go into the tree and fight, like you find a squirrel army who then enlists you to go get their secret agent from
who turned on them.
Yeah. So in each level, Cody and May each obtain their own unique ability and must use those abilities cooperatively in order to solve obstacles and defeat various bosses. So that's the description of the game. What we are going to talk about today, though, there's a lot of stuff. Obviously the game deals with relationship and love and couple dynamics and communication, just a whole slew of different psychology topics. And so we're trying to break down a little bit of them. I'm going to be talking about how a lot of the mechanics of the game have metaphors and are symbolisms for the communication issues and the relationship issues that May and Cody have. And then Joe, how would you summarize what you're going to...
I want to be doing a lecture on Dr. Gottman's work, work, and how it applies to Cody and May's relationship. Particularly, we're going to be talking about contempt. So I'm going to be talking about what makes a relationship great, right? What it can get in the way, and what could destroy a relationship. So yeah, I'd say strap in. It might be a long one. At least my section might be a long one. Because I was like, this is one of the shorter works I've done. And you're like, I don't know about that, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we'll see.
I was looking at that and I'm like, bro, I don't know. That doesn't feel short to me, but it's all good. Remind the audiences at home who Gottman is. So, aka remind me, because
so Dr. John Gottman and his wife, they focus on helping couples, building strong foundation of trust, communication, emotional intimacy. They're one of like the biggest pillars in couples therapy. What they're trying to foster is the good enough relationship, which is like you can sit with your spouse, with your partner, and not fight each other or argue.
Oh,
right. Because some people might say good enough, right? It's good enough now.
You saw me.
Yeah, you're like, what does that even mean?
Turn to you. I was like,
but it really is like
good enough.
We're building friendships up. So in relationships, when we lose respect, when we lose, admiration for the others, it's about building that friendship up again, because we got to get back to the good enough where we can start working on other things, right?
Okay. That makes a lot more sense then.
So I'll get into it. What like things are in the sound relationship house theory, like the 9 components of a relationship. That kind of stuff.
Perfect. Well, I mean, shit,
do you want me to get into it?
Yeah, might as well. Okay, let's just do it. All right.
So like I mentioned, this is a couples therapy, right? It's a lot of information, and I'm telling you, like that PDF that I have this. I took the training for this. I'm level 1 trained. It's pretty long because that PDF was like long. I'm telling you, it took me like a couple months to get through it, of course, because I was working. But there's a lot of information there, so I tried to condense the most important things, at least for the pod. So we'll get into it. So the sound relationship house theory, right? It's like a checklist. They don't tell us about relationship dynamics in our program, right? So I want to break this down. So this is the Gottman theory. There are 9 parts of the sound relationship house theory. Each of these levels involves the need to build a fundamental process. And I'll just start describing them. So the first one is building love maps. Think of this as the foundation of the house. The love map is a roadmap of one's partner's inner psychological world. The fundamental process is asking open-ended questions, such as what's your favorite way to spend a weekend? What's something that makes you feel appreciated? What's a dream or goal you've had since childhood? Do you know your partner, essentially? Right? And if you don't, these are questions that are very important. Because it's kind of like what makes you tick.
Right. Sorry. Quick question. I know this whole thing, you said it was like a checklist. Are they sequential? Are they in any specific order? Like, do you have to have this building a love map first?
No. I think with the house theory, it might look sequential because there's like a diagram, right? But in my experience, I don't go in sequential. I might skip some of these, which the Gottmans might be like, no, bad, don't do that. Right? But
Gottman was also like, it's good enough.
So I try to tailor this to my couples, right? What they're working on, because they'll let you know what the issues are before they start therapy, right?
True.
So are we gonna have to talk about love maps? Maybe, right? And you go down, because there's a lot of things to this. Like, this is not a quick process, right?
Yeah.
All these are pretty in depth, you
Yeah.
know. So let's get into number 2, which is
Mhm.
sharing fondness and admiration. So the second story of the house, right? Picture just the house, right?
Mhm.
Uh, the fondness and admiration system, which is the antidote for contempt, which we'll talk about later. This is the fundamental process of changing a habit of mind from scanning the environment for people's mistakes and then correcting them to scanning the environment whose one partner is doing something right and building a culture of appreciation, fondness, affection, and respect. So
Okay.
there's something called the negative sentiment override, which I'll talk about later. But essentially, think about it this way. Um, let's say it's a relationship, right? And there's a partner who's like, oh, I cooked for you, right?
Mhm.
And so the other partner might be like, oh, you cooked me for me because you want something, right? That's that negativity,
Oh,
right?
I see.
When that is there present in the relationship, when you're trying to do something good, right? That's when the friendship is not doing well. Like it's kind of, you need to work on that, right? Because
Mm.
if you're starting to assume that everything has a negative connotation to it, right? That's not a good place to be. So what Gottman's arguing, or saying, let's build that fondness, affection, and respect back up.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm like already thinking of Cody and May throughout
You
the
see it through
game.
the game.
Yeah.
There are certain lines that I was looking through the videos for, because they kind of stood out to me, and I was like,
Mm.
like they stand out in a way, like it's not malicious, but like if you look under it and use the Gottman lens, you're like, okay, yeah, I can see,
Right.
right? Because there's a line that's like seems inconspicuous, right? But I'm like, no, if you dive deeper, right? Or maybe I'm just looking too hard,
No, no.
overthinking it. You're like, oh, this is, yeah, I can see where this is
You see the
going.
contempt, you see
Yeah,
the
you can see the
negativity.
connections. You can make the connections,
Yeah.
definitely. So turning towards, this is like a huge concept, which are bids for emotional connection. So this is the third story of the house: turning towards versus turning away in everyday moments. They call it an emotional bank account, the fundamental process of building awareness of how one's partner for connection and expresses emotional needs and deciding to turn towards these bids. So the way I like to break it down is like, let's say
Mm.
your partner is like, hey, you want to go grab some food, right? And you turn towards and you're like, yeah, let's go to so and so, right?
Yeah.
Turning away would be like, no, I don't really feel like it. I had a bad day. I'm just gonna shut the door and go to my room,
Oh, I
right?
see.
Or you
I
can
see.
ignore it as well.
Yeah,
Just like,
that's turning away.
yeah.
Um, is there a healthy way, I guess, in this case? Because, like, not maybe if we're going to use that example, maybe you're not hungry during that moment. Is there a healthier way without just completely turning away to turn down like their suggestion?
Well, I would
Or,
say, maybe get something small if you're not hungry, right? Or accompany your partner.
oh,
Maybe it's not
okay.
even about the food. Maybe it's just spending time with your partner,
I
right?
see.
So turning towards, you can turn toward in a way where it's like negative, right?
Mm.
As well. So being mindful of that, right? And the way that, they talked about the movie Sliding Doors, which I never watched. But it's essentially the small choices can hugely affect the course of a couple's life, right? Life is full of these sliding door moments, which are opportunities to turn towards one partner. So it could be the smallest thing,
Okay.
right? Like brushing your teeth with your partner, right? You're like, no, I'll do it later because I got to play some Monster Hunter, right?
Hey.
Got to play some Like a Dragon,
Shouts
you
out to
know?
Brandon right now. I think he has about 30 hours playtime in Monster Hunter, and that
That's
game's been out
wild.
for 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're way behind.
Yeah.
I still got to wait for my copy because Target was all out of them. Wild, man. Monster Hunter Wild.
Monster Hunter Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the turning towards system. And I really like the bid, right? Because it's like when you break it down for couples that way, they're like, oh, I didn't think about it that way, right? There's an
Mm.
emotional bank account, right? Turning towards positively, right? And I think there's a ratio here later on that I'll talk about like negative to positive. How many you can get,
Oh,
how many negative interactions you can get away with in a relationship.
damn. So there's 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 a certain amount.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
So let's talk about number 4, the positive perspective. This is the fourth story, right? We claim one as Bob Weiss's idea. They did it from Bob Weiss. Positive sentiment override determines a lot of things, including the presence of positive affect in problem-solving discussions, the success of repair attempts during conflict resolution. In the first 3 levels, when the house isn't working, there's that negative sentiment override that I'll be talking about later. So the positive one is essentially, believing in your partner and saying like, oh no, like you give them the benefit of the doubt, right?
Mm-hmm.
You cook something for them, right? And they're like, oh, that's great. Yeah, they're happy about it, right? Because they just
Yeah.
had a long day at work, rather than the no, you want something, right? Like, what do you
Yeah.
want? right? That's you can already see the shift there, right? So we'll talk about the negative one because I mean it applies to the story of It Takes Two, or at least the couple dynamics. I would say, right? At least at the beginning, because I haven't seen the ending. I know they, like you said, they don't get a divorce, right? So I'm curious if we see that positive perspective being cultivated, because in the game you do see like they start to build that friendship up.
Yeah,
they're co-oping with each other, right? And so as they're working together, it's like less I would say less stressful, less I don't want to say evil, but like some of these things I'm just like, it doesn't feel good when you're playing it, right? It just feels off, and it just feels like, like you shouldn't be there, as the player.
I know,
right? Because they're like going through it,
right? Especially at the start, you're just like, oh, I hate to see them just constantly arguing.
There's like the one scene, when they get turned into when Cody gets turned into the clay figure, and then May is the wooden figure, and Cody's freaking out, and May is like, hey, can you shut up? I'm trying to sleep.
Oh my God.
Right? And it doesn't come out that way, but that's how I perceive it, right?
Yeah.
She's like, Cody, shut up. And I'm like, okay, we're already starting off on not a great foot.
Yeah.
Right? That's where that contempt is, where you don't respect your partner, right? You lose respect. And you can see that even I think I have the opening cutscene. I kind of describe what's going on later on.
Okay.
So we'll get into that. So that's the positive perspective. Number 5 of the house is managing conflict, right? And usually with a therapist, they help you identify the core issues. So it might be finances, might be child rearing, right? So you identify the core issues and the anatomy of the repeating negative cycles in a relationship. By anatomy, the Gottmans mean that the therapist helped the couple understand what triggers escalation, defensive,ness, criticism, contempt, belligerence, and what the story of these triggers is in the person's past history, right? So also in couples therapy, you need to be mindful of partner, right, their parents, what their relationships were like, because most likely they learned how to navigate relationships from their parents. It is said that our first relationships are with our parents, right? So a lot of the things that we struggled with in as a child, right, might carry over into our current relationships. So how did you manage conflict then? How did parents manage conflict? Most likely you'll be doing the same, unless you're aware and you're actively trying to change it, right? So that makes sense with managing conflict. Number 6, making life, dreams, and aspirations come true. What is the basis of a continued positive, effective emotional connection even during conflict, they ask. Therapists once believed that if conflict were resolved, positive affects of all types would rush into the couple's world by themselves, like air rushes into a vacuum. Not true. Positive affect systems need to be built intentionally. This includes play, fun, and exploration, and adventure, the friendship, right? Because when you start a relationship, it might start romantically, right? But you're building like something together, right? You're building like a friendship first, most likely, right? And so what are those dreams and what are those aspirations? How can you help each other to reach those dreams and aspirations?
We don't see Cody may be doing that at all.
No, you see it later on in the game for sure. 7, creating shared meaning. Finally, think of this as the attic of the house, where people either intentionally create or do not create a sense of shared meaning in their life together. A relationship involves building a life together. This life is full of meaning in the way the couple moves through time together. It is in how they prioritize their time, their resources, stories. They tell each other about their days, their ancestors, their culture, their beliefs, etc. Right? Here is where the symbolic meaning, love of many of our ideas about emotion, meta emotions in the relationship. So what are our emotions, how we handle them, say about the relationship. In the attic are important dreams, narrative, myths, and metaphors. Here lie the narratives about what life means. Here are the informal and formal rituals of connection in relationship and family. This is what people tell themselves about emotion and their internal thoughts. So how do you guys function together, right? What is the routine? What is the ritual when you get home, right? The cooking ritual, the cleaning ritual, all that, right? Because this is all important to a relationship, because you're interacting with each other, the smallest things, right? Yeah. So 8, trust, which is kind of like no duh, right? But trust is a state that occurs when a person knows that his or her partner acts and thinks to maximize that person's interests and maximize the person's benefits, not just the partner's own interests and benefits. In other words, my partner has my back and is there for me.
Nice.
Right? That's integral.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm like, this one, if they were ranked, I feel like this got to be somewhere on the bottom in the foundation.
This is the moat that covers the house, right?
Yeah. This is the protection there.
Yeah,
I get it.
Definitely. That's your ADT. That trust.
Brink home security. Is that even a thing anymore?
It was in the past. I don't know about now.
Yeah.
And then commitment. which commitment means believing and acting on the belief that this relationship with this person is completely one lifelong journey, for better or for worse. I don't like that, but it implies cherishing one's partner's positive qualities, nurturing gratitude about what one with this person by comparing one partner favorably with real or imagined others, rather than trashing one's partner by magnifying one's partner's negative qualities, and nurturing resentment by comparing one's partner's unfavorable with real or imagined others.
Oh my God.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because in relationships there might be times where there's the contempt, right? And I've heard this from other couples where it's like, oh, just wait until someone else treats me better, right? I know someone else can treat me better. It's an imagined one. That's what they mean, right? It does. I mean, there could be someone else. I don't know. That's not my business. Unless you're in couples therapy, then it technically becomes my business.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, commitment, being committed, right? And
absolutely
acting on your best, I don't want to say best behavior, but acting in the benefit of the couple.
Totally. Yeah, all of 9 of these make sense, and it was fun to like read through them and then imagine the scenarios with Cody and May to see which one, like where they fall amongst all these, because like they're not there's some aspects of these where they still like fall under it. I mean, they're also forced into doing a lot of this because they need each other in order to get out and get back to them to be their normal selves. But it helps rebuild that foundation through the story and through this process. But like, it feels like they at least have the trust thing together at still, least, and like obviously they have commitment to some extent to even make it this far into the marriage, so they understand commitment. So it was just like rebuilding back to get there.
Another question I just had was the rating on this game, because I'd imagine if there was like infidelity and all this stuff going on, right? Ooh, this would have taken that. I don't think It Takes Two. It might become It Takes One.
Oh, so low.
Yeah.
I'm googling the rating right now.
It's got to be like E10, right? Or
I think it's more, because they say like shit and stuff. No.
Oh well, yeah, the relationship line, right? It has.
Oh right. I think it's at least teen. Why is it so hard to find like a ESRB rating nowadays?
No one takes them.
Oh, it's teen. It's teen.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So maybe hey, maybe someone will make a very serious one, rated M.
Yeah. I wonder what Split Fiction's going to be rated.
Is that? But that's not a couple.
It's not
dynamic,
a couple,
right?
but now I'm like, yeah. I guess no, it's not a couple.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. So let's get into the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And when you were reading that, I was like, what?
I was like, what do you mean the
catastrophizing it, right? So these are the 4 things in a relationship that could be present, that will not be great for the relationship, might end the relationship. Not right away, of course. Right. But like, think about it as a bank account, right? You withdrawing, and then you're going in the negative, right? And then any little thing, any little spark might push you over the edge.
Is this where the ratio comes in? Is that later?
Might. I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah. A little curious about it, or
cut that. Yeah, I'm like, how many do I have left in the bank before I overflow?
So the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Criticism is the first one. The definition of criticism is stating one's complaints as a defect in one's partner's personality. That is, giving the partner negative trait attributions. They say that the antidote is using a gentle startup, meaning that using I statements, express a positive. Criticism is like saying, you're always doing this, right? You're so selfish, right? Rather than a critique. Right.
Rather than right. You're just like blind or blatantly labeling them like this like negative thing. And then, like you said, not really using the I statements either, because like that negative thing makes you feel a certain way, and it's more important to express what it is that you're feeling than it is to put the other person down.
Right.
I think. I don't know.
No, I agree with you. And here's the thing with criticism, right? I think coming from a partner or someone who's close to you, it probably hurts more than a stranger.
Yeah,
right? For sure. Because you've been vulnerable, you've built a relationship with this person. So criticism is not going to feel great. Some people might be like, I don't care, I just ignore it, right? But that is one of the 4 Horsemen as well, which is called stonewalling, which we'll get into in a bit. And so what they mean by like gentle startup is essentially like, please and thank you, right? Would you please ask me about my day? I'm feeling left out, can we talk about it? Rather than like, you never ask me about my day, like you only care about yourself, right? That's not gentle.
Nope. No.
That's a bad time.
Yeah, and that was
sure.
the basis of the communication between Cody and May at the start.
Yeah, definitely. And that starting cutscene that I've rewatched like 2 or 3 times for this video or for this pod, right? Because I was like, there's a lot there. There was a lot there, right? And
it's funny that we almost skipped it because I forgot that we had
right. You're like, no, I want to, watch it, right?
Yeah.
And I went back to like watch a playthrough as well and just like gather some information too. But there's a lot in that cutscene between their interaction.
I still wonder if they had any sort of therapist on staff, like to help write the narrative for this. I feel like they probably should have.
Maybe.
But
Yeah. And it's funny if you go to the subreddit, because I was like trying to look up like dialogue lines and stuff.
Yeah.
In the subreddit, you have Team Cody, Team May, that Cody's insufferable. He's such a big ass baby about things, right? And then May is a complete like, right? She's like doesn't care. She can be very, aggressive with him. And I'm like, there's just people taking sides here.
This is kind of insane. I've never been to the subreddit for It Takes Two. I didn't know that there was this battle going on.
Yeah. It's in the comments too, because it could just be a question about like just something about the game, and then people just get into it. Right? They're like Team Cody, Team May.
Yeah, well, if Cody just did this instead, I could see that happening.
Like, Cody's such a loser because he's a stay-at-home dad. I'm like, damn.
Oh my god, that's my dream.
Yeah. I was like,
what you mean,
bro? These are, but of course, like everyone's gonna have their own input, right? Everyone has their own experiences. So Cody might trigger something in somebody, right? May might trigger somebody. It's just, it just depends on our experiences.
That's totally true. They might see something in one of their actual relationships in Cody or May, and then that triggers them, and then they're upset online and taking sides like against that person. Damn.
Yeah. So what team are you?
Oh, I don't know. I can't.
Okay. We're on the team of the couple, right?
Yeah.
We want to bring them together.
I'm a Book of Love.
Yeah, Book of Love.
The
right?
relationship. Sorry, I know that was a very offensive accent, but if you saw this game at all, it's Jesus
It's
Christ.
over the top.
Yeah, I kind of nailed the accent right now.
It's like Dr. Hakim is here with us.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna do that.
You gotta stop while you're ahead, man.
Exactly. We're done here.
So back to the 4 horsemen. We have defensiveness next. Defensiveness is self-protection in the form of righteous indignation or innocent victimhood. Defensiveness wards off a perceived attack. It's not my fault. An example, it's not my fault that we're always late. It's your fault, right? Being defensive, right? You can tell when someone's being defensive,
Mm-hmm.
And the antidote here is like, well, part of this is the problem. I need to think more time about it. So taking some time to think about what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Not taking it personally right away. Kind of just like, be like water, right? It's kind of like bob and weave, right? Take some time if you need to, right? But not also to the point where you're like stonewalling, where you're just like, you're gone.
Right. Right. Need to do some self-reflection here. Oh, really?
Maybe even some self-meditation, self-coping, right? Because sometimes we got to bring it down. Right, instead of going to the defensive option, because the defensive option is pretty easy, right? I mean, we've all been in relationships, and we've all been there.
Yeah,
right. Even it doesn't even have to be relationships, right? It could just be like interactions with others.
If you've worked customer service, I'm sure.
Taking me back to my Best Buy days.
Oh, bro. Oh, yeah. Oh man.
No, thank you.
We both had some bad customer service jobs. I'm sure. I actually didn't know you worked at Best Buy.
Yeah, I worked at Best Buy. I worked at Universal Studios, and my heart goes out to those in customer service because it's not easy.
I know. Did it for almost 10 years, so I get you.
Yeah. So going back to the 4 horsemen, contempt, which I'm going to focus on within this game, is thinking they are worthless and useless, right? Even those words. Yeah. Where is the respect in those words?
That already sounds real bad if you think your partner is worthless or useless.
Yes. So statements like this come from a relative position of superiority. Contempt is the greatest predictor of divorce, and they say must be eliminated. This is the enemy, right?
Yeah.
The antidote for the couple is to build a culture between them of appreciation and respect, and describe your own feelings and needs, right? An example is like, you're an idiot, right? Which is like coming from your partner. Again, hearing that probably doesn't feel good.
No.
Right. I'm not gonna divulge too much, but I can tell you that's not feeling that. No. No. This is not my therapy. It'll never be my therapy. But that does not feel good. I can tell you that. Right. Antidote. I feel hurt about not being included in your conversation with our child's teacher. I need to be given an opportunity to express my views. So like, yeah, I mean, kind of like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? How can that be met? And portraying that to your partner. right? Rather than kind of being like, you're stupid, or you never understand, or dismissing them, right?
Yeah. That dismissal, could definitely hurt because it shows that your partner just didn't even consider you, and it's like, well, why didn't they consider you? Do they feel like you're incompetent? And yeah,
and then you have your own self-talk, self-thoughts, like, oh, why didn't you? It's just
yep. It just spirals.
It's just a bad rabbit hole to go down through. It's bad. So contempt is probably, I wouldn't say if we were gonna rank them, right? Contempt is probably one of the worst ones.
Yeah.
Stonewalling. This is emotional withdrawal from interaction. So think about like just stopping, just like numbing out, like not even listening. Your partner just speaking at you, right?
Yeah.
And you're just taking it. Right?
You're just like, whatever.
And so
yeah, I'm used to it.
That's not great either. It's not.
Oh man, you're taking me back.
It's all right. It's all right. We'll get it how it applies to May and Cody, right? Not to us in previous relationships, right?
I know.
Or current.
Or no. I'm gonna clear the air right there on that one. That is not current. We're good. We don't have the 4 horsemen here.
Okay, good. All right, so the dynamic, right? So in the game, we have May and Cody, who reveal their daughter Rose that they are planning to separate and divorce, right? Through shenanigans, they put it as, involving the Book of Love by Dr. Hakim. May and Cody are transformed into dolls. It is up to them and their teamwork to find their way back to their original bodies. We get a better sense of the couple dynamic though, and we as the audience hope that we can bring the couple back together. That's what I hoped for. I don't know, I'm sure there's other people like, nah, have them divorced. They don't.
There's so many like games criticisms, especially because Split Fiction's coming out. A lot of people are talking about It Takes Two again right now, and they're all like, oh yeah, that couple just needed to divorce like the second the game started. And I'm like, let's not be too hasty here.
And I guess it depends, right? This is like a fictional couple, right? But
Totally.
Sometimes in couples therapy you can tell like one partner is done.
Yeah.
Right? They're done.
Yeah.
And so it becomes separation counseling at that point, or even divorce counseling.
Oh, yeah.
But here in the game, they didn't go down that route because at first it seems like May is the one that's more closed off, right? Like she's like, oh, we're getting a divorce, right? And then Cody also says like, oh yeah, we don't have to work together. We're getting divorced after this. Right?
Yeah.
So they're both
on the
there.
Same page.
Yeah, they're both on the same page. Right?
Yeah.
So even in the opening cutscene, we see that the couple discussing Rose's missed dentist appointment. Right, Cody is surprised by May because she reminds him of it. Reminds him of the appointment, but it quickly turns to May having to work overtime on Saturdays. He mentions like, you're always working, right? Because she mentions like, oh, I don't have to tell you because I am working, right? He's like, but you're always working, right? So it's not even about the dentist appointment there anymore,
no,
right? It's about these couple dynamics that are they're going haywire. So even small things like this interaction, right? Once you pass that threshold, like any little small thing can set off a fire essentially in the relationship. May requests that they do not have the discussion again, and them openly discussing the divorce, which Rose overhears, right? You see the cutscene where she's holding the 2 dolls. I believe that it is important to note that Cody is the stay-at-home dad and May is the breadwinner, which could be an issue as well. Especially like 1950s America, that'd be an issue, right? But we are not there. Thank goodness. Well, we don't talk about politics, but while not the main factor of the divorce, right? Him being the stay-at-home dad and she is the bread and May is the breadwinner. This dynamic does play a role because it's like Cody. There's a dialogue that's going on, like his passion was gardening, right? And that kind of takes a dive, right? And May's kind of a little bit hard on him about like, yeah, you just abandoned it,
Yeah.
And Cody, he's like, well, I need more support and appreciation, which I get that, sure. But it's like, May's not going to force you to do the gardening. You got to do it yourself, do it for yourself, or do it for your daughter, or, whatever your reason is, And so, like I mentioned, contempt and how it plays a role in the relationship. During the first couple of minutes when Cody and May wakes up, she refers to Cody as a blob of clay, which I was like, am I just being too sensitive about that? Right? It's like he's a blob of clay.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, he is made out of clay. Maybe I took it, I was reading too much into it. And then again, think of it on my perspective. I'm searching for this stuff.
Oh, totally.
Right? So it's like, I might be making a big deal out of nothing, but that's the point here. Right? Yeah. It's like, it seemed a little harsh. And so that's why I was like, huh. Right. Even the cutscene where she's like, shut up, Cody, I'm trying to sleep. Right. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I was like, because he's freaking out. He's like, we just got turned into like, dolls and the clay or whatever. Right. And she's kind of not having it. But Cody refers to her as a wooden doll, right? Not like I don't know. I'm not going to say anything that's going to.
Like a blob.
Yeah. But still, so here's where you see one of the 4 horsemen, right? It's contempt, right? And there are following moments in the game. At the start of the game, Cody and May express frustration and resentment toward each other. There's conversations filled with sarcasm, blame. For example, when they first find themselves in the magical world, they are forced to work together. They frequently insult each other. Cody calls May a control freak, while May accuses Cody of being irresponsible and immature. These exchanges highlight their dissatisfaction with one another. If you remember the scene with the vacuum cleaner, right, where Cody's like, oh no, I only used it for dust and stuff, right? And he spits out all the things. He's all broken. He's mad at Cody.
Yeah.
And then the vacuum's all like, but May, you were supposed to fix me and you never did.
Oh.
Right? It's like, yeah.
Yeah, May.
Yeah. So it's like, it's both of their faults, right?
Yeah, totally.
But they like to throw each other under the bus. Like, oh no, it was May.
Oh yeah,
right?
they're so quick to just do that, especially at first. I'm also like, why was the vacuum getting in between? Like, I would have just stayed out of their way at that point.
Yeah. So, you know, there are scenes like that. There are some dialogues throughout the game where it's like, May, you know, what do I have to do? You know, all the hard work, Cody, because you never let me do anything. You're the one that's always in control.
There's that contempt.
May, if you stop being a slacker, maybe we could get this over with faster. Cody, stop telling me what to do. I can figure this out myself. So you can see in that, like in those dialogues, right? There's the contempt, right? You're a control freak, right? You're a slacker. You know, this is a smaller interaction in the game where it's like May mentions the Book of Love sounds like a pretentious self-help book that Cody would buy. And I'm like,
oh no.
And it's not like, but self-help books are great, right? It's like, even that little remark, which, you know, the audience might be like, that's not a big deal. But think about it. Over time, these kind of interactions will add up.
Yeah.
And so even something small like that, something maybe seemingly harmless, can lead to a big issue.
It doesn't even feel too small to me. Just it feels like there's so much history behind that one thing. Sounds like a pretentious self-help book Cody would buy. Just like, you know, as if Cody is constantly buying these like things that he doesn't need that are just come across as pretentious, and May doesn't like it. And yeah, there's so much.
Yeah, and think about it. Is that May's money as well?
Yeah, right.
Self-help books, because he's a stay-at-home dad.
Right.
And he wants to work on gardening. He wants to, you know, he's just like, where's your passion at, right? And it's like, well, it's not there.
And here he is trying to better himself in some way and then being chastised for it.
Is he even reading the books? Is he even, you know, getting any messages out of the self-help books? Or is he just collecting them, right?
That too.
And this is nothing covered in the game. We're just, you know, talking about it.
Yeah.
We're just discussing it because there's more to this story. Of course, we're not going to get more of it.
No.
Because it's a video game. But a couple's dynamic and even therapy itself can be so in-depth where like things like this, the self-help book line, there's so many other aspects to it.
Yeah.
And so that's why with this game, I was like, oh, cool. We can talk about Gottman. We can talk about like what's going on in the relationship dynamic. And that's why I was excited about it, because there's so much to this.
Right? Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. I it's funny because I'm like, damn, are you just doing this on a daily basis? Like,
right. What is a day? Yeah. I mean, I find couples work interesting, right?
Yeah.
I really like it because things that might come up, you know, I might be wanting to do like a, you know, Gottman questions, right? But some things might come up in the relationship where we need to focus on them now, right? And so that was, couples work can be great. It can also be not great because, you know, there could be like DV going on, you know, or other stuff, you know, but, you know, that's neither here or there. But, you know, couples work is, I don't know, I find it fascinating.
I can see why now. Yeah. I can see why. Thanks to this video game.
Yeah, definitely. And so one last line I have here is Cody, well, you know, well, looks like we're stuck with each other for a while. May, great, just what I wanted. Cody, oh, so now I'm the problem. Of course he thinks that. May, I didn't say you're the problem. I just said the situation sucks. So you see how Cody attributes it, or kind of like takes it as like, oh, I'm the problem.
Like the defensiveness.
Yeah, here's the defensiveness, right? And May's like, I didn't say that, right? Again, this is where, you know, the I statements is like, I feel, I believe, you know, that you took it this way, but I actually meant this, you know. In couples therapy, there is this, it's called the listener speaker, where you have maybe, you know, one listening, actively listening, and I will ask them, hey, what did you hear? Right. Can you condense it for me? Because I want to know what their version is versus the version that their partner is saying.
Yeah.
Right. Because I want to know, are you actually listening?
Right.
And it's not to put them on blast. It's just to, you know, yeah, are you listening? Like, what's going on? You know, are you disassociating? Are you just, you know, sticking to the parts that stand out to you, that are negative, that sound negative, right? And so that you can see this, right? If Cody and May were in my therapy, right? If I was a therapist, I'd definitely want to break this down.
Yeah, I can see why. It feels like so many of their lines just have a lot of uh
It's got a history.
history, and then one of the four horsemen is hiding within like something there. At least at the start. They do eventually become more cooperative, but they come out swinging for each other at the start of the game.
For sure. Yeah. So like I mentioned before, these comments may not mean much and people could brush them off like, there's just any comments, right? But again, there's a tipping point where any small or big issue comment could set the relationship down to a path of no return. So here's the ratio, I believe. Gottman mentions that for every one negative interaction, there needs to be 5 positive interactions.
Okay, 1 to 5. 1 negative, you got to have 5 positive. You hear that, people?
Yeah.
5 if you fuck up, you got to be good 5 times.
And of course, in It Takes Two, we're certainly exposed to way more than one negative interaction, right? Especially at the beginning of the game, but we see the positive interactions. I'm reminded of the snow level, the snow globe level, when they start to they start to become vulnerable with each other.
That was the turning point. I noticed as well.
And then they start to build the positive. They're starting to work on that, right? So I was hoping that we would see more of that, right? Which we might, right, if we continue the game. I could always watch a walkthrough as well. But as the game progresses, they're able to provide their perspectives without the snide comments, without the passive aggressiveness, without the contempt, right? There's a balance theory that Gottman discusses where both positivity and negativity are actually necessary, right? Just because you have negative interactions in your relationship doesn't mean it's a bad thing, because negative interactions and negativity can lead to change, because you're going to want to fix it, or you're going to want to adjust it, right?
That makes sense.
Turning the relationship into a relationship.
Thank you, Book of Love.
Yeah, I was like, that's such the clever line.
Yeah,
we learn more from our failures and mistakes.
Yeah, we learn a lot from the failures, like I learned today.
So let's go within the negative sentiment override, which I mentioned before. So Robert Weiss defined the concept of positive and negative sentiment override. Negative sentiment override is this discrepancy between inside and outside perceptions of the interaction. So an actual neutral or positive message is interpreted by the partner as negative. Right? Hence the negative sentiment overrides positive interactions. So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, like you're cooking something, right? You're doing it because you want to, right? And then your partner might take it negatively.
Yeah.
It's like, so what do you do here, right? And so the goal here, like I mentioned it multiple times before, is to strengthen the friendship in the couple, right? To have them become friends again, right? Because sometimes when we I would say level up, right, or move on to the more romantic interactions, the friendship might not be a priority anymore, right? So whatever started the relationship, right, maybe you guys liked hiking and all this stuff, right, being outside, you're doing that less and less, you're going to the movies and stuff like that, but that maybe that's the way you built that friendship, was hiking, right, in nature, camping, doing all that stuff, right?
Did Jocelyn tell you this?
No.
She literally is like, damn, we used to hike a lot, now you just want to go to the movies like every weekend.
I'm just like talking out of my ass, man, but all right.
Okay.
But I'm just saying,
okay.
You don't have to reel so much here, man. But this is how you strengthen, right? What brought the couple together, right?
Yeah.
And again, the good enough relationship, which I have here. I believe this game characterizes turning the negative sentiment override into a positive one. Allowing Cody and May to work together, reform their bond with each other. The game allows the couple to work on their friendship before moving on to the romantic relationship aspect. Because there's that, like I've seen the last cutscene, right, where they're together, right? They kiss each other, embrace each other, right?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't get there just by, because we wanted to, right? They built the friendship, they built the respect back up. That positive sentiment override, they built it back up. So we are likely to think a relationship is a good relationship if the two partners choose to have, coffees and pastries. This is the good enough relationship, right? This is how they frame it. On a Saturday afternoon, and really enjoy the conversation, being engaged, right? It's about being engaged with your partner, right? And not letting the four horsemen disrupt that, I haven't seen, experienced the end of the game, like the last couple chapters or whatever, but they're together. They're right.
Yeah.
So there's more positive there than the good enough, right? So they go beyond that for sure. And so yeah, I mean that's my section on Gottman.
Yeah. that was perfect. I loved learning about the couples therapy dynamics and just like some of the stuff that you look for in there. I don't know. Would you say Gottman is probably, and like what you just talked about right now, is the core of like the couples therapy and like how you would conduct couples therapy?
Usually for me, yes, because I was essentially trained in at least the level 1, right, of Gottman.
Right.
But there are other couples therapies and other, dynamics. They'll mix in CBT, solution focused, all that, right? And Gottman, I think, is one of the most well known for couples therapy.
That makes sense.
So this is something that I wanted to talk about, but I feel like, with Gottman, not everything will apply, right? Everything is subjective, sure. But there are a lot of good things in Gottman that that see in couples therapy that, works for sure.
Yeah.
Because I know with Gottman, they do a lot of like assessments, a lot of like tests at the beginning, right? And they want you to do those, but sometimes they're counterintuitive. They might tell me otherwise, but I feel like they're counterintuitive because I don't feel like the couple wants to sit there and answer questions for 3 sessions straight, about, the first time in the relationship, all this, blah, 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 blah. Because people are unpredictable and people will get into it in couples therapy.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why you need to be flexible. So I enjoy and appreciate what Gottman brings into it. And I'm no like couples expert or anything, right? But you got to be flexible with this stuff for sure. And that's why I take the Gottman more as like my foundation and then adjust it to the couple themselves.
Okay.
So this is what I usually use is Gottman stuff. And I really like their stuff.
Yeah, I could see why. It feels like it covers a lot of bases, and it feels, at least with what they were talking about, or what you were talking about, it just kind of makes sense as to how to build that foundational relationship. And like you said, that a sound relationship, or build that house. Yeah, I could see it. So I think with this game, there is a lot of dialogue that occurs. There's a lot of it, like that you could read into, and a lot of interactions between the people. But one interesting concept that I don't know if they did on purpose is the use of the game mechanics to also represent the relationship troubles and then cooperation and working together. So I guess I'll go ahead and dive into it.
Let's hear it.
Like I just said, we see a lot of different family dynamics within this game, relationship counseling and repairing concepts and techniques that have been gamified to make this experience more fun to the player. So a lot of these concepts, especially the ones that Book of Love talk about and the way he says it, they feel cheesy and loose because of this kind of weird caricature portrayal of Dr. Hakim. But there is, like we just found or learned from Joe, there is some truth behind it. So like I said, I want to talk more about the game mechanics and how they represent these concepts of communication, conflict, and growth. So one of the core features of this game is its unique cooperative gameplay that honestly I don't think has been done in any other game to this extent. Cody and May are each assigned their own asymmetrical abilities, meaning they each receive different abilities, their own unique ability. So a quick example, that garden-based level, we have Cody, he gets that, I think it's a Venus flytrap that he could like snap onto things and pull down. And then May gets garden shears, but she also gets a water gun. So pretty cool. So she can attack at close range and then also fill up some thirsty plants. And I initially like enjoyed the game design idea behind this, but then sometimes I would get jealous of like seeing you play like the more cool or fun thing.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that with May. She got more of like the action oriented kind of stuff.
It does seem like
the matches, right? She got the fighting game section.
She got the gun.
She got the
from
gun.
the sap thing, or is that what you're talking about with the matches?
She got the Super Mario Sunshine Flood thing.
Oh yeah, right? Exactly. So yeah, these are all asymmetrical, and this feels very deliberate in the game design. They did not want to give two people the same things. And I eventually kind of got over that jealousy and it was just starting to appreciate it a bit more, even though I sometimes still wished we had the same ability, because I realized that, this is kind of reflective of relationships and how each person has their own like abilities, their own strengths, different communication styles that they bring into the relationship. And this helps balance that relationship out and complement each other's strengths. Because, sometimes in a relationship, someone could be either more communicative or want to talk immediately about a conflict. That might be me.
Or avoid the conflict. Or any conflict is bad. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Which I also used to be. I've been both sides of that conflict communication coin. But, or it's funny. The next thing I have written, whereas like the other person might want more time to process the conflict and figure out exactly what they're feeling and think about what they're going to say without just saying and acting in that moment. So this doesn't have to be seen in terms of like this is just one example, the social skills and the communication skills. This could still be something like the chore preferences, like in terms of balancing out the relationship. One person might enjoy doing like laundry and the other one enjoys like doing the dishes or whatnot. So it's just that I guess my point is everyone has their own unique things that they bring to the table, and you combine them together to be like a solid relationship and have this foundational partnership. Because if everyone was just the same, it would like, I don't know.
I'll say this. I cannot stand people that have my type of personality. I can't.
I know. I feel that way about myself too. I'm just like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I can't stand me. I wonder what my therapist would say if she heard me say that right now. Anyways, so I was trying to find more research about this whole concept in general. There are some key words I found that were called like complementarity, but there is also some other concept in like ecology and cell biology called complementarity, and I was just like, okay, this ain't.
I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm struggling to find some articles here, but one article I did find detailed the importance of like respect and appreciation of individual differences as to what makes this relationship strong. And we see this occur in the game with May and Cody. They use their abilities successfully, and then eventually, maybe not at first, but as we played the game, they start being a bit more positive with each other. Like say something like, nice job hitting those wasps.
The wasps.
I was like, should I cut that? No, I'm gonna leave that in. That's for you, audience. Nice job hitting those wasps, May. They're complimenting each other for using that ability that they were either given or worked on to help take down one of these obstacles, which could be something that's actually affecting the relationship, or it could be something literal, like in the game of wasps blocking your path. So
I like that line though, because if we talk about the negative sentiment override, you can be like, nice job hitting those wasps, right? And you missed.
Yeah,
right? Like that's because when you read it, I'm like, you can interpret it in a different way.
Because I'm sure you read ahead what I was gonna say, and you're like, what inflection am I gonna put when I read it right now? So that's interesting.
I was like, damn.
Yeah. I'm like, I want it to be positive. Okay. Like I did not want it to be sarcastic, because I wanted to show that they do eventually get into that positive space. So I like that. Another gameplay mechanic or feature that kind of stood out to me was the use of separation between the characters. For the majority of the time, you guys are together, but there will come a time during each level really where the game separates you, and you have to work together to reunite. So I enjoyed the symbolism here, as sometimes a relationship might have each person metaphorically either moving away from each other or feeling distant. In this game, like I said, we see this literally because of an obstacle that's separating both Cody and May. But and then, for example, I'm going to try and do that clean in case I need to edit something. And then, for example, in the game, there's this one level where they are like riding the spiders through the garden, and then you're separated by the large wooden plank and then the water. I think that might have been one of the last things we did. So, and you each have to use your abilities one by one in order to help the other person cross. So I think I had to, or maybe you had to fill something up. Or no, I had to help you cross the pinwheel first, and I like pulled the wheel down so that you could get to a certain angle, and then I think you shot water or something into something else, and then that opened up the door, and then we could both
there's a lot of moments like that in the game.
I love it. In real life with one's relationship, this might mean utilizing some of your own strengths and abilities in order to bridge that gap, that communication gap, emotional barrier, or maybe mochi, or some other gap that is due to the conflict that came up. So it's not always easy, but as long as both people are like willing to put into this effort to work together, then you can close that distance. And I thought it was kind of cool to see that in the gameplay. I'm also don't know if I'm like stretching for to see this, but it feels it feels intentional. It feels like they deliberately designed it to kind of be used as a metaphor for the relationship.
Definitely.
So another key game mechanic is the communication, both as we have seen with May and Cody, but then also to play the game and to actually like work together. So like I mentioned earlier, a key part of making these unique mechanics work in the game involves being able to communicate properly. There were some levels that we played where I think we realized what to do, and like it was just like, oh, we gotta shoot this nail gun thing here, and then you like grab something else. But then we were just like discovering that area at first. So we had I I forgot which was the very first one, but then it was funny just realizing like, oh, actually we have to time it and we have to like talk about it, what we're gonna do. And like I started counting down, it'll be like 3, 2, 1, and then you jump and then I shoot the nail. So it's like, yeah, we got the abilities down, but then it was learning how to use them in the right moments at the right time and communicating that with each other in order to make that work. So this timing, making sure everything aligns, requires communication. Yeah, I don't know. I might cut that. So obviously in the game, they talk to each other. But just want to reiterate, communication is key to any relationship, whether it's romantic, friendship, whatever. You're always going to have to talk to someone. You always got to communicate. So this topic of communication in relationships, it's been researched pretty thoroughly. But there was one interesting article I found that detailed the importance of changing how communication occurs in romantic relationships. So the researchers found that sometimes when dealing with conflict, a more direct opposition to conflicts can be more beneficial if a major change needs to occur. So that might sound kind of confusing. For example, being able to communicate that someone has some sort of problem that is negatively affecting the relationship and bringing that problem up to discuss is better than just downplaying that problem via humor or showing just like this overt positivity, overt affection, and validation. I was just kind of thinking an example. I guess I didn't write it down, but I had one in my head of just like someone had like some sort of gambling addiction or something, like kind of being positive about it is not the way to address that addiction or something like that. You sometimes need to be more direct and confrontational, even if that kind of opens up the what is it called? It kind of opens up the potential for any sort of like negative communication. But this is only for relationships that have serious issues and conflicts, and for people who feel confident in the relationship. Because they found that people who scored lower in self-esteem and higher in depression, this did not hold true. So you have to be pretty sound in who you are, and your relationship already has to have that foundation in order to have that effective directness. Otherwise, it can have a negative effect. So, for minor problems that aren't directly affecting a relationship, affection, validation, and being empathetic and supportive are more beneficial than the more direct approach. And we kind of see this in It Takes Two. We see Cody and May. They discuss some of the more serious things that occur to separate them, such as May always being at work, not spending enough time with the family, or with Cody and how he has lost passion for a lot of things, or for like gardening and how he's overly sarcastic, refuses to work through these conflicts because he's just brushing it off with humor. So obviously, this kind of boils over during, I think, one of the sessions with Dr. Hakim where they're like forced to they're strapped on that couch and they're forced to go
couples
through
therapy.
Yeah. So they kind of argue at each other to get their point across. Yeah. But in that argument, they kind of had this realization that the other person is simply sharing the reality, or maybe I did as the audience member, saw the realization that they're just sharing the realities about the other person, and that maybe there could be some truth to them, and that they need to work through this in order to be together, and for the sake of the family, for the sake of Rose. It really feels like they're using Rose as a motivation to do a lot of this stuff. So this felt like a powerful moment to me, because they said that even though they still want to get a divorce, you see them putting in that work to mending the relationship. And yeah, it's fictional. Yeah, they were forced to put in that work, but they're still doing it. And that seems to say that even at a subconscious level, they do want it to work still.
For sure. So what you're saying is you need a greater enemy to focus on rather than your relationship issues, right? Here being the book of love.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's funny that you say that, because I definitely remember some sort of group dynamics class teaching that, where if there's conflict within the group dynamic, having everyone have a common enemy instantly solidifies any sort of intergroup conflict.
Yeah.
So the same kind of holds true for relationships,
sure.
if you have that common enemy. But yeah, so as you work your way towards the end of the game, you realize how much better Cody and May become at communicating and working together. Yeah, at first they bickered and kind of begrudgingly used their abilities, because they shared the same goal of wanting to get back to their bodies and then get a divorce. But not too far, maybe halfway through the game, we see remnants of the spark of the relationship that they used to have start to resurface. And then we see that communication become more positive, encouraging when it needs to be, more honest and vulnerable when they do need to work on themselves. I thought this game honestly did a good job at showing the required work to repair a relationship, even if it was silly, sometimes cringy, and obviously not like representative of an actual therapy session. Not all the time. I'm sure there's some key moments, or some moments there that might be representative, but I still recommend this game kind of to everyone. Not only because it's fun to play, but I think the message in it feels important. That message of working together and communicating and just kind of and loving your dog. And yeah, I really enjoyed the game, even though the narrative was okay. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it
was serviceable for sure.
Yeah, in terms of like gameplay goes, or like video games goes, narrative okay, but in terms of like two psych asses just like reading into it, there's a lot in there, and I think it was pretty fun
for sure. Now I'm curious if you can integrate this into couples therapy. Like, hey, let's do chapter 1 and see how you guys do. Right? Come back with like homework. Right? Come back.
You know, I ain't gonna lie. So I guess we might as well. I mean, we're already at an hour. Fuck it. Let's let's be transparent here. Yeah, Jocelyn and I went through couples therapy, and coincidentally, this game also came out around the same time that we started playing it. And I do think couples therapy probably saved our relationship. That's so good, yeah. Were a lot of the things that you talked about present during our therapy sessions? I'm not too sure. I do recall the sessions, but I don't recall there being a lot of structure like this. But I do think playing this game, especially with Jocelyn, it doesn't play too many video games, so it was like me, pro gamer, going playing with her. It definitely opened up like the potential for some like negative, some of those 4 horsemen to come up.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But I think maybe because we were going through therapy at the time, or I don't know what, like I was trying to be as encouraging as possible during those moments and not showing any sort of frustration, even if it was like 10 or 15 time that she was trying to do something. It was just like
you were a pro at that when I was struggling at home trying to play online during the garden.
Oh, dude. Well, yeah, that lag was some other bullshit. Like, I don't know what was going on there.
It was terrible. My computer could not handle it. And I was like,
yeah.
I just carried through. I was just like, oh.
Yeah, we got through it.
Yeah.
We got through it. All right. Well, I think we spoke enough. This is one of our longer episodes that we've done recently.
Okay.
And you thought it was gonna be short.
I thought my section was short. I thought I was just gonna blast through it.
No, you were at 45 when you were done.
I saw that one. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess so.
So I'll just cut all this last talk. Anyways, do you feel ready to wrap up? Or you feel good? Any last words of the game?
No, I just like continuing that thought of like, I wonder like you could integrate this in a couples therapy, right? Because I don't know, it'd be interesting, right? It's like chapter 1, 2, right? Or identify yourselves in the characters and see, but that could get you in trouble too.
Oh yeah,
I was like, oh shit,
oh no,
you're like
for
Cody.
sure, Cody.
Yeah.
Like how we both went after I guess we're team May and we just didn't realize it. Yeah, I don't know. I would love to see I would love to see if that was implemented.
Yeah. I wonder if you could do like a workshop on it or something.
Maybe.
I'm just thinking about it because, you know.
Let's UCLA is nearby. I think they got a video game psych research thing. Let's pitch it to them and then see if Joseph Ferris wants to sponsor us.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Joseph, please. I would love to work with you. Holy shit. Anyways, guys. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for listening to this one. This one felt like it had a little bit something that affects everybody to some extent. You know, everyone has had a relationship with someone, whether it's romantic or friendship or whatnot. So there's a lot of important stuff here. So once again, thank you for listening. And if you aren't already doing so, be sure to rate, review, follow us on whatever podcast listening app you're using. Shoot us messages, find us online on the social media, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Twitter. And if you have the financial means to do so, would love to see your support on the Patreon. We are a listener-supported podcast, and right now we just have the $1 a month tier. That $1 a month grants you access to the Discord server, and I will go ahead and send you some stickers as a thank you bonus for signing up. So thank you again. All right, y'all. Until next time, take care of yourselves. We love you, and we'll see you around.
Yeah. See you in the next one.
Bye, everybody.